Hello, Life Outside podcast listeners and viewers. It's Dani, and I'm here with another story. This one's called First Park, 2 R's. One of the first places that I solidified with a map of in my mind is close to where I grew up in the house where I had a self-made fort along the banks of Friday Creek, and now, as an adult, is nearby as well. Driving the road to reach it, Chuckanut Drive, or State Highway 11, I've always been swayed by the arching madrone trees and the way that light filters through them. The narrow, winding road demands that the driver slow down, and when you're on your way to Washington's first state park, Larrabee State Park, the change in scenery from the flats of Skagit County or the rambling buildings of Fairhaven hints that something special is about to happen. As Washington's first state park, it was originally called Chuckanut State Park and was renamed Larrabee State Park to honor Charles Larrabee, who had deeded his waterfront land to the state for the park. It was a popular place for locals to picnic and reach the beach, but struggled as an entity during the Depression. In the 1950s, the Larrabee family donated more land, growing the park, and as it grew, so did local interest. My childhood and teenage years gave me a slanted view, of course. The stage in the picnic area is where I would perform for the birds and the trees and anyone else that would watch. There's a spot amid a cluster of trees overlooking the water. That's where I used to hang out and plan the rest of my life with my friends. The hikes up the side of the mountain to one of the park's lakes is one that I've taken many times. Clayton Beach is where my father would take me to enjoy the sun and to eat rye crackers, sausage, and cheese, all cut from a pocket knife he carried. It was also the trail that I fell on once, at the point where the trail becomes a long slanted rock just above the railroad tracks. To continue the trail, one must walk or slide down the rock. That day I fell, and I was attempting to walk. Instead, I slid forward. That fall has stayed with me, and it has taken time, patience, and since then it has taken courage for me to navigate steep and smooth rock descents. I still laugh at how silly the fall was after the other rocks I've traipsed up and down ever since without even a scraped knee. But I was validated by a review that I read on the Washington Trails Association website that noted the rock and its potential danger. My adult experiences have been equally romantic, in many ways due to nostalgia or just the result of taking in the joy of a perfectly lovely day. I've visited with dogs, family, friends, as well as on my own. It's a place that I can escape to without leaving home, but it's also a destination for many who live nowhere near it. In high school, a friend lived near the park, and we would inadvisedly walk the road to the park and spend the day. I led a group of younger family members down and then off of one of the trails, and we spent nearly an hour walking the railroad tracks to find a way back to the park. I spent an afternoon there last year with my then love. He appropriately mocked the named beach as being what the waterfront areas were purported to be. We made lunch in his van and wandered the campground. In the spring and fall, the hikes up to either lake are old standbys. If you don't want to drive or get hit by cars on Route 11, you could walk or bike using the trail system that goes through the park, filtering users in either direction. The Chuckanut Ridge Trail system is a wonderful part of living in the proximity of Whatcom and Skagit counties. The trail continues into Bellingham and becomes a part of the city's interurban trail, which is aptly named the Bay to Baker Trail. It is a gift that has been lovingly crafted over generations, and I've always been very appreciative of it. From Larrabee, the best hikes using the trail system are to Fragrance and Lost Lakes. The hike to Fragrance Lake is a 3.9-mile loop and is considered to be heavily trafficked, and the hike to Lost Lake is a 5.3-mile loop and gets less visitors. Both lakes are popular for fishing, but in my opinion, they are perfect for a quick lake day when I can't get to higher elevations. The trail follows a route up the Chuckanut Mountain Range, so there is some steepness and elevation gain. But if you have any experience with going up hills, you shouldn't have a problem. I especially like to save hikes to either of the lakes for spring or fall days. When the weather is cooler, the trails tend to be quieter, and the bugs are either dormant or dead. Clayton Beach is officially closed and has been for years. In order to reach the beach, unless by water, one must cross the railroad tracks, which now expressly belong to Burlington Northern Railroad Company. But that does not mean that people don't visit. But it's officially closed until the day comes that the dreamed-about pedestrian walkway is built. The beach itself is a series of sandstone rocks and trailed bluffs above. There are several spots for people to find a perch and take in the views. The rocks are enticing to vandals, and in 2016 they were covered in vile and offensive stains and markings. Thankfully, several members of the community rallied to clean the rocks of the racist vandalism. Larrabee is situated on Chuckanut Bay, and there are a few water spots to wander to other than Clayton Beach. To refer to any of the spots as beaches is a stretch, but they are areas that one can walk to, see the water, smell the gift of raw sewage from Canada, and peer out into the islands beyond. The boat launch is for that very purpose, but it's still a pleasant spot to wander on a lazy day. There is a place to camp at Larrabee. Confession, I've never camped there. Being in close proximity to Bellingham, regardless of the availability of houses to stay at, there are plenty of places to park for a night or two as well. Bellingham is one of the most friendly #van life cities that I know of, perhaps to a detriment. The reviews of Larrabee complain most of the train. In fact, the Washington Park State Park's website even nods to the pesky train as being something that might bother light sleepers. As the train goes directly past the campground and through the park, I wonder what defines one as being a light sleeper. Train traffic in the area increased in the 2000s when oil companies from Canada began transporting tar sands oil through the Northwest to be exported to other countries. So noise and miles of oil-filled train cars roar through the area night and day, every day of the year, providing the tracks are clear. When this began, I remember being saddened by the idea. Now it is an everyday thing, and when in the area, I think nothing, except for the minor rage, at seeing hundreds of train cars hauling tar sands oil through the community I grew up in the once pristine and enchanting Larrabee State Park. That is not to say that it still doesn't hold enchantment for me. It's still a go-to, one of the closest state parks to my home base, and definitely the superior one. There are a couple of picnic areas. When my niece was young, I would take her there for lunch and to play on the playground. Sometimes she'd want to get on the stage. People still flock to the park. On exceptionally nice days, it is often hard to find a place to park, but the opportunities in the complex mean that most areas never reflect the crowded parking lots. The expansive grassy hills, the miles of trails, up, down, or around, mean that each visit to the park can be a different one. And I will still get on the stage at the main picnic area. So if you are at the park, be on the lookout for me. I might be doing a little number just for you. And that's my story. Thank you for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time. Or outside.